man for man against the Chargers, this is a team the Eagles can win. Or this is a game, rather, the Eagles can win. Yes? Agree or no? Football Wednesday for Football 24/7 across the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. It's our Wednesday look-in as the Eagles go back to practice. John McMullen, I started my day with you, and I'm going to finish my day with you as we bookend a Wednesday. I got your thoughts this morning. Then off to practice you went, and now I get an opportunity to talk to you about what occurred today at practice. We're all presented, of course, by Stateside Vodka. Go to statesidevodka.com, use the keyword JAKIB, get 15% off of the vodka soda delivered right to your door if you're in Pennsylvania. Eagles release Eric Wilson, Johnny Mac, top of the list today, a healthy scratch against the Detroit Lions, and I guess that was the inevitable stamp on his ticket out of town.
Yeah, it was going that direction. He kept losing playing time. I think if you looked at week one in Atlanta, he was sort of the linebacker, the number one linebacker, and then it just steadily declined from there. Just didn't perform, especially in the run game, run support, which shouldn't have been a surprise to the Eagles. He was one of the worst run support linebackers in the NFL. In Minnesota when they signed him. The book on him was he was very good in pass coverage. And he's okay. He's athletic. He's undersized in that part of the game. But the other part, you just couldn't leave him on the field. And so guys like TJ Edwards, who maybe don't have the same type of athleticism, but have a better instinct for the game, Alex Singleton, I would put in that category as well. And then Davion Taylor's the third linebacker. That's a guy who the Eagles want to get on the field. And by the way, I agree with him. I've been talking about that since training camp. And the only way to get better is to get reps when you're that raw of a player. And the Eagles are sort of going through that with Davion Taylor. And it's not pretty at times, but I think he'll get better. And he has such a significantly bigger upside than a player like Eric Wilson. You had to pull that trigger, and the Eagles did it today.
John, TJ Edwards, how good of a game did he have on Sunday?
Well, I think he had a really good game, and you see it. I mean, he essentially has locked down, very similar to Alex Singleton last year, really. If you think about what happened to Alex Singleton, the Eagles, they didn't want him to play, but he got an opportunity due to some injuries and some ineffectiveness, and he got on the field and he never left the field. Sort of the same thing with TJ Edwards. They didn't want to play him, but the ineffectiveness, specifically of Eric Wilson, allowed him on the field, and when he got on the field, he just played better. And now it looks like they're not going to be able to take him off the field. It would be nice, though. Nothing against TJ Edwards, nothing against Alex Singleton, but it would be nice for the Eagles to learn this lesson at linebacker and bring in more proven commodities or more if they're younger rookie type players with bigger upsides, but we've had that discussion. You got to go back to 1979. 1979, last time the Eagles took an off-ball linebacker in the first round of the draft. So, needless to say, that predates, that predates Jeffrey Lurie, never mind Howie Roseman. So it's not just Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. The Eagles have thought this way for a really long time, that it's not one of the more valuable positions, and really dates back to Andy Reid and Joe Banner. and they're not necessarily wrong, but there's got to be a happy medium. You can't just keep throwing out, you know, free agents that you pay bottom basement dollars. Essentially, you're getting them at the Walmart clearance aisle, or undrafted free agents as rookies. There's got to be a happy medium, and that's what they're trying to find with Davion Taylor, who's a third round pick, but that's a third round pick who was a project, barely played in high school, only played very little in college. Um, so they have to find a happy medium at some point.
It's so hard to understand, Johnny Mac, because you listen to your explanation about the linebacking position, and then the poor linebacker play is attributed to some of the reasons why the defense is struggling, because they don't have good linebacker play.
Yeah, I mean, no question
Hard to
about it.
understand. It's hard to understand.
Yeah, I mean, they went through this during the Doug Peterson, Jim Schwartz era. As I said, I mean, and they managed to make do a little bit better. So, their philosophy is to, dominate up front with the front four. And when that happens, you can mask some of those deficiencies on the second level. I think the defensive line hasn't played up to the level the Eagles expected as a whole. Part of that is obviously a significant injury to Brandon Graham, but Fletcher Cox has not played up to his typical level. I think after the really strong start, Javon Hargrave has slowed down a little bit. We know Derek Barnett, Jody Mack wants to run him out of town on a rail. I think he's a little bit too hard on him, but he's certainly not. He's not. He's never lived up to the billing of a first round pick. That's fair to say. Josh Sweat has not taken that leap. Had a big game in Detroit, but I think people were expecting him to take that leap into the next level. Really haven't seen it. Milt Williams had his best game in Detroit, but prior to that, as a rookie, hasn't been doing much. So a little bit of a disappointment. And when the defensive line is not performing to what they are supposed to do, they're not protecting the linebackers, who are not the strength of the team, to say the least.
Going into the game on Sunday, John McMullen, of course, the LA Chargers are in town. This is a winnable game. If you're the Philadelphia Eagles, if you're a fan of this football team, if you look at and compare the Philadelphia Eagles directly, man for man, against the Chargers, this is a team the Eagles can win. Or this is a game, rather, the Eagles can win. Yes? Agree or no?
Yeah, I think it's a winnable game. But, the other side of that coin, Krausey, it's a losable game. Yeah, I mean, and that's most NFL games. Nick Sirianni talked about the parity in this league, and it really is true. I talk about it all the time. If you don't bring your A game, you're probably going to get beat by whomever. Detroit being a little bit of an outlier in this particular season. Yeah, the Chargers have at times looked great with a very talented second-year quarterback, but recently they've come back to earth a little bit. They're certainly beatable. They're a little banged up in the secondary, but they certainly have talent. Lane Johnson was talking about Joey Bosa today. One of the dominant edge rushers in this league. His brother, you got to see with San Francisco, very similar. Derwin James is one of the better safeties in this league. So, but they have some issues as well. the right side of the offensive line is not great. So you look at, okay, typically, and again, that's where not having Brandon Graham, which has, become quite an issue with this particular team. Josh Sweat is starting to settle in, though, a little bit at left defensive end, and maybe you can make some hay there. And, uh, you know, you, every team has strengths and every team has weaknesses. Clearly on offense, the weakness of the Los Angeles Chargers is the right side of the offensive line. On defense, uh, you probably want to attack the interior. Um, Jerry Tillery has kind of never lived up to the billing as a first round pick. He's sort of there. Derek Barnett. Linval Joseph was at earlier in his career was one of the best nose tackles in the NFL that used to give Jason Kelsey fits when he was with the New York Giants and Minnesota Vikings. But he's older now, and he's not the same player that he once was. So, people talk about the running game. People are very excited about what the Eagles were able to do against the Lions. Maybe try to keep it going against the interior of that Chargers defensive line.
Start with their head coach, John Brandon Staley, the head coach of the Chargers, versus Nick Sirianni, the head coach of our beloved football team, the Philadelphia Eagles. Two young coaches. This whole coaching tree in this game. I learned a lot from your article in Philly Mag about the evolution of Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen. I encourage everybody to take a look at the Eagles report and that great read on the evolution of Nick Sirianni. What do you make of Brandon Staley? Learning on the job, making some mistakes. Bill Belichick has already proven to be kryptonite for this team already. What do you make of him?
Yeah, well, Bill's kryptonite for a lot of people. You saw him against Sean McVay in the Super Bowl. But he's a rookie head coach. They're all learning on the job. Nick Sirianni's learning on the job. The one thing Nick Sirianni's been able to do is beat other rookie head coaches. Arthur Smith in week 1, Dan Campbell last week. Here's another one. So maybe we got something that Nick Sirianni's capable of doing. Brandon Staley's one of those guys. You've probably seen him on Twitter. He's become sort of I don't know what you want to call him, but the media has certainly taken a liking to how he expresses himself and how he talks about league issues that are even bigger than the Chargers. People seem to really like the way he communicates. As I said, he and Jonathan Gannon are really, really good friends, really close. They've known each other. They're both from the Cleveland area. They've known each other since they were 10 years old. Jonathan Gannon, interestingly enough, got Brandon Staley started sort of on this route at John Carroll University. Jonathan Gannon was just starting out in his NFL career with the Tennessee Titans, and he got a job. He got a job offer to be the defensive coordinator at John Carroll, and he said he didn't want to leave the NFL, which was the right move for him, obviously, at that particular time. And they asked him, well, who would you recommend? And he said, Brandon Staley. And Brandon got that job. And then it was, off to the races, so to speak. And he kept advancing in his particular career as well. So Gannon is the godfather of one of his children. They were at each other's weddings. I mean, they're really, really tight. And it's interesting. So that will be sort of a connection. And we know Nick Sirianni with the Chargers, Shane Steichen with the Chargers, and Shane specifically with Justin Herbert. helping him develop into the NFL Rookie of the Year last year. A lot of connections with this Chargers organization as a whole from the Eagles coaching staff. But as far as Brandon Staley, look, the Eagles, that's another storyline. The Eagles wanted to interview Brandon Staley. And if he interviewed here, Nick Sirianni might not be here, if you believe certain people. He turned down the opportunity to interview with the Eagles. There was a Philadelphia Inquirer report from Jeff McLean that he did so because of Howie Roseman. Now, that's possible, but I will say, people are taking that next leap. Jeffrey Lurie wasn't going to hire a defensive head coach. Not going to do it. So, he would have liked to have talked to Brandon Staley, just like he wanted to talk to Robert Saleh, and he was able to do that. But he was not going to hire a defensive head coach. So I think that part of it's a little overblown. Ultimately, Brandon was probably smart, and he was already going to get the Chargers job, so that was part of it as well. But the Eagles weren't going to hire an offensive head coach, so why waste your time? A lot of interesting layers to this particular game, and you probably don't think that because the Eagles don't play the Chargers that often, but a lot of interconnection here.
Football 24/7 with NFL insider John McMullen. The team goes back to work today, 4:05 kickoff on Sunday at the Link. The crowd should be into the football game. Hey, Philly, this is not the 0-7 Detroit Lions, but this is a defense that has proven that they can't stop the run. So the expectation from the fan base after 46 times on the ground a week ago is that the team will run the football. The question is, if the gunslinger goes up by a couple of touchdowns, does the head coach, meaning Nick Sirianni, have the patience or the discipline to stick to the run or to stick to the game plan?
Yeah, it hasn't shown the discipline. But we can say that, but it's also difficult if you're down 14 points to a team, for instance, or even 2 scores. So it could be 10 points to a team that could move the football, especially through the air. Because, I always say that's the biggest problem for people that want to run the football consistently. There's such a small margin of error. If you do it well, if you move the change consistently, and you take the lead early in the game and you play from the lead, it could be very effective. But when you do get down by 2 scores, then that margin of error, which is already small to begin with, clenches down even more. And because you can imagine if you're down 10-0 and the Chargers are moving the football and you're saying, all right, I'm going to be disciplined, and you run the football on first down, for the sake of argument, you get 2 yards, you run the football on second down, you get 4 yards, you got a 3rd and 4. Well, you got to convert. You got to convert or the ball's going right back to the team that's moving the football. And if you're down 17-0, game's over. Especially if you're the current version of the Philadelphia Eagles, who do not have a high volume passer. They do not have. The Chargers are a team that can fall behind by 2 scores. They don't want to. Nobody wants to. But they have the capability of coming back because they have a quarterback that can sling the rock, so to speak. The Eagles aren't at that position at this particular time.
You would have to assume, based on how bad the Chargers defense is against the run, that the Eagles will have some success You got the big uglies in front of them. You got one of the best offensive lines in football, or at least you had. They want to run the ball.
Well, of course. I mean, I think every offensive lineman wants to run the football. And again, if you run the football, you have to go about it a certain way. As I just said, you have to. I talk about it from the coin toss with Jody all the time. If you want to run the football, why are you deferring if you win the coin toss? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense if you want to give the other team the opportunity to take the opening drive and put you behind in the game. If that's your game plan, and I'm not saying it is Nick Sirianni's game plan, but if that's his game plan, take the football and try to run it and try to take the lead and try to play from the lead, and then you might be cooking with some gas. If you're coming in with the game plan of run the football, 1980 Philadelphia, I'd like to call it. If you're coming in with that game plan, well, embrace the game plan. Do it. Shorten the game. That's what you're essentially trying to do, shorten the game. So if you want to shorten the game and run the football, shorten the game and run the football. But don't defer and put it on Jonathan Gannon's hands and blame him if you get behind. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Will Gannon revert back to how he played or schemed Patrick Mahomes or?
Well, yeah, he's going to go back to a certain understand. I mean, last week it was Jared Goff, Khalif Raymond, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, a rookie 4th-round pick. This week it's Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And if you want to throw Austin Eckler in there, if you want to throw Jared Cook in there, if you want to even throw Donald Parham in there, really big, lengthy tight end. It's a more difficult skill position group, to say the least. But just as I said with the linebackers earlier in the show, there's got to be a happy medium. There's got to be a happy medium. No, you can't, if you're going to blitz and you're going to be super aggressive, Keenan Allen's going to kill you. Mike Williams is going to kill you. Justin Herbert's going to kill you. If you're going to sit back and cover 2, he's a young quarterback. Maybe he makes some mistakes. Maybe he doesn't. He might kill you that way. And that's where I say there's got to be a happy medium, And Gannon often talks about first and second down defense. You got to be effective on the early down so you can get them in 3rd and long. And if you get them in 3rd and long, then you can do some different things. Then you could do some blitzing. You could have a corner blitz from Avonte Maddox. You can have a linebacker blitz. You can overload. You can do some different things. But you can't do that stuff when it's 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 4. Because they're just going to run a hot route to Keenan Allen. It's going to be a first down, change their move, and boom. Or they might even go deep, and it's worse. So there's got to be a happy medium.
Football 24/7 with NFL insider John McMullen here across the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Team goes back to work today. John, who spoke post today? Who was on the podium?
Krausey, you're putting me on the spot. I gotta look at so many people on Wednesdays. Let's see, who'd we have? We had Darius Slay, we had Jalen Hurts, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Milton Williams. Yeah, that's
Devontae speak today.
No, did not expect that because of what's going on with Henry Ruggs, to be honest. The Eagles want to kind of protect him from that. Jalen Hurts was asked about it. Jalen's classy guy, so he handled it the best way he could. But there's not much you can say about that situation other than, and it's awful. And, in every level. But I don't know if you saw some of the um, information coming out of the court hearing today, but 157 miles per hour at 3:30 in the morning, twice over the legal limit, loaded gun in the car. I don't know. You just sit and you wonder what is the thought process. And unfortunately, a very young woman and her dog, which makes it worse for me as a dog lover. Um, it's just awful. Every bit of that circumstance, and there's nothing Devontae Smith or Jalen Hurts can say about it other than what I just said.
Yeah, I just wonder if they're affected by,
terrible.
I just wonder if in some way, a tragedy like that affects so many lives. And I know we're only talking about football here.
Yeah,
Devontae Smith had a personal relationship with him. They were roommates together.
yeah. So did Jalen, and that's the thing.
And
I mean,
Landon.
yeah, and if you're friends with somebody who does something like that, yeah, I'm sure it affects you. But there's not much you can do from across the country. So unfortunately, you got to live your life, and um, there's nothing Devontae Smith can do about it except um, try to get through it.
Yeah. Last thoughts from Johnny Mack before we wrap up our Wednesday updates. Again, Eagles back at practice. John, did they put out? I'm sure they did. I didn't have an opportunity to go on Twitter and see it. Anybody on the did not participate injury list today that
Yeah,
worth
that's
noting, or just the traditional or usual list of guys who are there on Wednesdays?
well, it's the Wednesday practice, so it's always a big list, but there's part of it is the resting players. The Eagles have started, pretty much done that the entire year. So uh Fletcher Cox was 4 players didn't practice. Fletcher Cox, who's got a bit of a knee injury, but it's also labeled as rest. JJ Arthega-Whiteside, who's got an ankle injury. Javon Hargrave has a shoulder injury. Jalen Rager hurt his ankle in the Lions game. Those guys did not practice. Then there was a big group of limited practice participants. Sean Bradley has a shoulder. Jack Driscoll left the game in Detroit with a thumb injury. Zach McPherson with his hamstring. Jordan Mailata with his elbow. Anthony Harris, uh, not Anthony. Anthony was back. He was back as a full participant for the first time. He's been out for 2 games. And then Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey simply were resting, and they practiced in a limited fashion. But the guys you probably have to worry about for the game are Jalen Rager and JJ Arthega-Whiteside. So 2 receivers. Um, Everybody else looks online to play um, against the Chargers.
What was the official Jalen Rager diagnosis from the injury on against the Lions?
Yeah, it's an ankle injury, but he was out there practicing, not practicing, he didn't practice, but working on the side with trainers. So it's not terribly serious, and he's essentially day to day. if you wanted to press me, I would lean towards he's probably not going to play this week. And we'll get a clearer indication of that by Friday. But you want to place a bet on that? I would say he's probably not going to play.
Well, for what it's worth, he seems to do well with those jet sweeps. If he can get cooking, he's got the speed. No doubt about that.
Yeah, and that's what it might come down to. He might be a manufactured touch player, which is not what you want for a first-round pick. But hey, you got to use what you have, and he can run those jet sweeps, and he can do some of that stuff.
All right, good stuff from John McMullen here on our Wednesday edition of Football 24/7, all presented by Stateside Vodka. Johnny Mac, are you back in the chair tomorrow on Birds 365?
I am supposed to be. I don't know. You guys run the show. You got to let me know. I don't know. Is Joe Krause going to be there? I don't know.
You're in the chair. I know that. Will Xander yank me out of the bullpen tomorrow? To be determined. I'll be prepared if needed, but look forward to you returning back in the Birds 365 tomorrow, and then we'll roll along from there. Great stuff, Johnny Mac, as always, man. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Krausey.
All right, good stuff. On behalf of John McMullen, on behalf of all of our viewers watching in on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. We thank you very much. See you next time.